And it was Kenny who had the idea of turning me heel. And I was like, of course, I'd love to be. I mean, I'm down to try anything, but I knew I was going to need a lot of help because I'd never been a heel before, ever.
Well, Britt, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
How's everything holding up in your world?
Everything's good. You know, I'm staying positive and just happy that there's still wrestling content and just happy to be healthy right now.
I've been saying that like having live wrestling on TV has been this nice, like tiny little sliver of a reminder that like there is some normalcy out there.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
So how's your nose doing?
It's okay. So it's more like internal now. It just kind of feels like a stuffed nose because my septum's deviated. But so much better than what 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think that people saw like the blood in your mouth and on your teeth, and they, their brain immediately goes to, your other job, and they're like, oh my gosh, her teeth are knocked out or something.
It's literally my nightmare is to hurt my hands because then I can't practice dentistry, or for my teeth to fall out because I don't know who I would trust to work on my own teeth.
Oh, come on. There must be someone in your office.
No, well, there's some, but it's just you have your own style and you're so like particular of how you like to do things. Then when you see other people, you're like, oh, I don't know if I would do that. So knock on wood again. I'm not knocking any of my own teeth out. Other people, that's fine. It's a business. It's a business, right? I've got to have some turnover.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you knock people's teeth out, then they can come. You can give them a discount, right?
Of course,
that's
yeah.
What their insurance looks like.
Right. We gotta check the insurance.
Are you still blown away that people don't actually know that you're a real dentist?
Yes, because it's like every week on Twitter, people are just like, "Wait, she's an actual dentist." I'm like, I don't understand. I can't speak on it because I just don't understand how by now you would not know that. Yes, I'm a dentist. Yes, I have my own office. Yes, it's a gimmick, but it's my life too. But here we are, and I'm happy to remind them, I guess, every week.
But I suppose I can understand it, though. That's a profession that takes, a lot of dedication and a ton of time. And so does this other profession called professional wrestling.
And the two of them together is like a whole other world of dedication because there's not enough time in the world to dedicate your life to just one. So when you're trying to split it up and dedicate equal parts, you don't really have time for a social life, and you don't have a lot of time to sleep either. So it's always finding little minutes and hours of the day to get stuff done.
Was this easier or harder when you were working on the independent scene?
I would just say it was different because when I was on the independent scene, I was in school. So school is if you're not studying at any given moment of the day, you should be. You should be in the clinic. You should do volunteering hours, and the independent. It's just so different because you're driving, you're in the car. So sometimes I would have time to study, sometimes I wouldn't. Versus now, working in a dental office, it's a whole other new world. There's paperwork, there's emergency patients calling you, and just the kind of the excitement, but also the stress of being on live TV with AEW. You want to be in the best shape, so I'm not missing any of my workouts. I'm making sure I have the least amount of cheat meals as possible. But it's just different. It's still hard. It was very hard, but it has its own difficulties now.
I would think with the indies, your schedule was mostly on the weekend, and I'm guessing you're practicing and doing dentistry stuff mostly during the week. Now it's like in the middle of the week, you basically have to say to everyone, sorry, I can't help you out.
Yeah, but it's like I have all my weekends now for the most part. And also I always say that like dental school is very hard. It's very mentally taxing. It's a grueling curriculum. And I think that wrestling was my escape. Wrestling is what kept me sane through dental school too. So I'm very thankful that I had it at that point in time.
I think that I'd be remiss to not say that you're wearing an awesome shirt right now.
It's my favorite band.
And anyone that's listening and not seeing this is like an awesome Queen shirt.
Oh yeah, my favorite. I have like 10 vintage Queen shirts because I just absolutely love them.
What's the best Queen song of all time?
Ooh, my favorite is Fat Bottom Girls.
Wow, what a random pick. Wow.
I know. I don't know why. I just love that song. I think it's an instant mood lifter.
Wow. Do you get the comparisons to Isaac Yankem?
Oh my goodness. When I first started working on the indies, I think probably at least 5 times a show, they'd be like, "Are you Isaac Yankum's daughter?" And no, I'm not. I'm not. But of course, I mean, how can you not draw the similarities there? But I would like to think it's a little bit different. I hope people think it's a little bit
I'd
different.
like to think it's a lot different.
All right.
I mean, but that was also in a time when like that was a gimmick. Like he was this scary dentist man. You are an actual dentist. And now we're living in a world where there's this crossover between what happens in the ring and outside of the ring. And it kind of mingles together to create this strange reality.
Right. And I think too, that's why I'm having so much fun now, is because I'm allowed to kind of really capitalize and over exaggerate my accomplishments as a heel. And it's so much fun because you're being ridiculous and over the top, but it's just bringing more of my outside life in, just in a different way, in a way that I would never normally talk about myself. But it's so much fun.
A dentist being a heel like makes perfect sense. Nobody enjoys going to the dentist.
I know. It's exhausting and it's stressful too, because like dentists are nice people and we just want to help you, but everybody, and it's like across the board, men, women, kids, adults, geriatrics, they're scared. They hate the dentist. They hate needles, which, to be fair, we're going to numb you. You should not feel anything. If you have a good dentist and you have proper like local anesthetic, you shouldn't feel anything. But here we are. People are still terrified.
I don't know. Have you seen the size of that needle? Of course you have.
Oh yeah, I see it, every day. But it's so tiny. It's these guys with these covered in tattoos and neck tattoos and face tattoos that start crying when it's time to numb them. And you always have to giggle a little bit to yourself.
What has been the like worst horror story that you've had with a patient?
Oh man, I think anytime kids they bite down, like they don't understand. And it's actually been in dental, when I was in dental school, we're trying to work on a kid where you have a handpiece in your hand, trying to drill on a tiny tooth. These teeth are so tiny. And when they keep biting down, because you have to have like instant reflexes to stop drilling so you don't drill through their mouth or something, but also they're biting your finger and it hurts like hell.
Wow. Well, what's the worst thing that you see, like just in general? What's the worst thing that you see in the chair?
Just overall neglect, people that their parents didn't have them brush their teeth when they were kids. So it's just a habit they never picked up on. So it's always like sad when someone has to have all their teeth pulled and they have to get like full mouth implants or full dentures. Cause it's for some people, it's very traumatic to have a tooth pulled, let alone when it's all your teeth. But at the same time, we can't have disease building up in there and have like systemic health concerns develop.
I still think it's crazy that you do a job where people like do not want to see you.
Well, I will say I'm getting more and more wrestling fan patients trickling into my office now because they know who I am. My name is Britt Baker. That's my wrestling name. That's my real name. And thankfully, they're very, very cooperative and they're very like pro oral health, where they're there for a dental appointment, not there to just get like a picture and autograph. But it's very much picking up the wrestling fan business.
There's probably going to be a point though where you're going to have to say, I just don't have room for new patients right now.
Well, I think that's everyone's dream. So when that happens, you've officially, you're made, and I'll probably have a really nice beach house mansion somewhere when that happens. But for now, I'm paying off the student loans.
So you're very much open to having wrestling fans as your patients?
Of course, that's like discrimination. I mean, I want to see anybody that wants to come in to take care of themselves. I will help you as long as you allow me to help you. If you're going to be stubborn, you want to fight with me, you think that you can diagnose better than I can, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave. So
do you want to do a little plug for your dentistry?
No.
Anyway,
no,
we don't need that many more patients.
No, yeah. I as much as I love it, I also don't want people like outside yelling at me for calling myself a role model on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that this has become a part of your gimmick. Lockjaw, I think, has been a nice addition to your repertoire here. Where did this come from?
Yeah, so the idea of that, so I did a similar submission on the independents, but it was in the Battle Royale where I had the idea of eliminating, I think it was Shazza, but with the mandible claw over the top rope.
Yeah.
And I remember asking Tony, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, why wouldn't you use mandible claw? You're a dentist. That's brilliant. That's great." And then I had the idea of using it's like the modified Rings of Saturn submission while grabbing on. And it was Excalibur that came up with the name Lockjaw, because I started doing it and everyone's like, we need a name for this. We need a name. And everyone's first instinct is like those buzzword dental words like root canal. But for me, oh my God, that has nothing to do with the root canal. I cannot just call something or like Novocaine. I'm like, oh, but that doesn't apply. Like in my internal instincts are just churning right now. I'm not going to call something it's totally unrelated. Lockjaw is pretty unrelated too, but at least it's something that people can relate to, and it has like a zing to it when commentary says it.
Not only does it look like it has or sound like it has a zing to it, like it looks really painful.
Well, hey, I'm not going to tell you the secrets of that, but
no, it's the work you've been doing in AEW has been amazing. From a fan from the outside looking in, what's this last year been like for you?
Oh, wow. A lot of learning on the fly, and a lot of growing, but like as a wrestler, as a character, as a promo, everything, because it's I was kind of just thrown into it. Well, we all were. Like, none of us had that much live TV experience. I had one squash match on WWE and I think one or two on NXT, but nothing where like the cameras are revolving around you. You have to make yourself look good, not just make somebody else look good too. So it's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, but it's also very exciting because it's something that like every single time you learn something. You learn something, camera cues or promo, anything and everything in the wrestling world that you can learn. Every single Dynamite taping, I'm learning something new.
Did the wheels start going on this right after All In?
See, that's more of like a EVP question, because I had been told by Brandy and Cody, hey, something might be developing. Try not to sign any contracts anytime soon. And I think it was December that I was contacted about signing a contract, and everything was very hush hush still. So I didn't tell anyone. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not saying a word, not telling. Yeah. It's literally no one was talking about it because it was going to be a big deal and it was a secret. And if I was going to be a part of it, I was keeping my mouth shut because I didn't want to be the bad egg. But obviously, I think All In was a separate entity of what we are now, but of course, I think it's what got the ball rolling.
Were you told at the time when you were asked to sign that you were going to be the first female on the roster?
I think she did. Brandy did mention that, which is like, holy cow. And it's so exciting because it's an honor, but it's also terrifying. Like, wait, I'm the first woman that you guys are looking to sign to represent this company, because again, I have no TV experience. I didn't have a huge following. I had somewhat of a following, of course, from All In, but nothing where it's very stressful to think, oh my gosh, I have to really help develop this women's division and be a leader in it. But it's like we have so much help from the back, from the producers, the coaches, the EVPs, that if you don't succeed, it's that you're not taking good advantage of all the help and all the resources you have there.
When that opportunity was presented to you, did you have to kind of take a step back and go, all right, what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for not just my wrestling career, but for my career being a dentist too?
That was actually the selling point to me, because that was a 2-sentence conversation. I was like, oh, wow. I went to school for 8 years to be a dentist, and it's like I have a hard time sleeping at night knowing that I would have to give that up for wrestling. And it was like, well, you don't have to give it up. We're taping on Wednesdays and we'll work with your schedule. And they do every single week work with my schedule. So that was a no-brainer. That's a dream come true. I can do both jobs that I've been working for so long.
What do you think of this? What do you think of this comment that Cody made on commentary that he doesn't think you're a real dentist?
Oh my gosh. Okay, Cody. I'm not even going to speak on Cody because him and I have our own differences, but of course I'm a dentist. Look at first off, look at my teeth.
Yes.
What do you think? That they just I grew out of the womb like these? No, of course I'm whitening my own teeth, cleaning my own teeth. But I take that back. I love Cody. Cody's been so instrumental in helping me develop as a heel, and he's. All the younger talent can speak on how much help Cody and Kenny and the Young Bucks have been in helping us develop into the characters we are now.
You were really over with the fans as a babyface. Where did the turn come, and whose idea was it to basically turn heel on Jericho's cruise?
So it was just I don't want to say I felt lost, but I just feel like I didn't have a character. It was just, and it was something that obviously the fans can't relate to because they're not dentists and professional wrestlers. So when you're shoving it down their throats, it's almost like a slap in the face, which was a sad, kind of sad for me at first because I was hoping it would be inspirational. But I guess when it's overkill, it's just kind of like, okay, we get it. Shut up. She's a dentist. And it was Kenny who had the idea of turning me heel. And I was like, of course, I'd love to be. I mean, I'm down to try anything, but I knew I was going to need a lot of help because I'd never been a heel before, ever, since my like independent career started. Maybe like one show as a guest where I still probably worked as a babyface because I didn't know what I was doing.
So you went out, you obviously wrote that promo yourself, I'm guessing?
It's a lot of coming together. So Tony obviously writes the show, and I'll get bullet points. Tony, Cody, and I will all kind of come together and come up with the content of what we want to say in the promos. And I think that you'd be foolish to not use your resources like Cody Rhodes. Are you kidding? He has some of the best promos I've ever heard in my life on Dynamite. His promo packages, and Tony Khan's a wrestling genius. And of course, I also have the help of Tony Schiavone, who is my little sidekick now, that we feed so well off each other. And there's some stuff that's just, a lot of stuff's just organic. It just comes out live on Dynamite, and the reactions and the body language, it just kind of happens. And that's what makes the best TV.
Yeah, he looks like he's very uncomfortable in those moments, which is a testament to how good of a worker he is.
He's the best, and it's like a comfort having him next to me because he's Tony Schiavone and he's such a professional. And I always say that if something goes off the rails, he's going to bring it back in. Everything's going to be okay. We have Tony Schiavone here. Take a deep breath.
The fans really reacted to the Starbucks line.
Yeah, that was the Tony Khan line. I didn't even know he worked at Starbucks, to be totally honest. But now it's like an ongoing joke. We all pick it at him, and we have the Starbucks cup every week, and the Starbucks footage on being the elite. But it's a great story, and it's great. It's like it's awesome promo content. I mean, he worked at Starbucks and had the insurance benefits, and got to work with a bunch of pretty girls. So he's living the dream.
Well, I mean, you have a great story of like how AEW is making your career, giving you this amazing platform. Tony has this amazing comeback story. 20 years later, after being the voice of Nitro, coming back and continuing to do amazing work on TNT.
And he's one of the most positive people I've met. He's so optimistic. He's always happy, and he's busy. He wears a lot of hats and has a lot of like backstage duties that he's in charge of. But he's just the best, and he will stop anything he's doing to help somebody or to say hello or to have a quick conversation, just because he's just such a good human.
So fair to say you're really enjoying working as a heel then?
Oh, I love it. I don't know how I'll ever go back to being babyface because I'm having so much fun.
What's one match that, really stands out for you over the last year that, you would tell people, hey, you want to see what Britt Baker's all about? Go check this out.
I would say the most recent one with Sheeta was really like a defining moment for me, just diving into the character and I guess the dark side of being a heel, the blood and the smiling. That really got a lot of traction. It developed or Chris Jericho and Tony on commentary too, which is epic. As a wrestling fan, you're like, oh my gosh, Chris Jericho and Tony are calling this match right now. And also had a top selling shirt, which I'd never had before, but with the Kiss logo from a quote that Jericho had said. And I think as of who I am right now, that match best defines the character of Britt Baker. Before that, I always say All In, because that for me was my first exposure to most of these wrestling fans now, because it's AEW wrestling fans were also All In wrestling fans, and nobody really knew who I was going into All In, that 4-way match. It was myself, Tessa, Chelsea, and Madison Rain, and they had all kind of had prior TV exposure, and I really didn't. So I was the underdog. I was the one that people are like, oh, who's this girl? So that one's a very defining match for me too. How
different has it been for you working, without the crowd to feed off of?
Well, of course it's different, and of course we love the fans, and they really are what keep you going in professional wrestling. But at the same time, I'm just so happy that we're able to produce content and still give them to the fans. It's the wrestling matches, the content. It's all still for the fans, whether they're at home or whether they're in the arena.
You mentioned that you didn't have a lot of TV experience before All In, but I'm blown away by the fact that WWE offered you a spot on TV less than a year into your independent wrestling career. Like, that must have been such a nice pat on the back to go, I'm doing something right. I'm on the right path.
Yeah, so it was on Raw, and I had been an extra at WWE many times, and and as a female, you never really did anything because they used the guys for the security or the medics but they had told me, hey, you're gonna have a match tonight. And I was like, what are they talking about? And then it was like, oh yeah, Nia Jax is gonna debut on Raw, and we want you to make her look like a monster. And oh my gosh, I was terrified. I was shaking. I couldn't eat. I was absolutely terrified because it's live TV, Raw, and I have to make someone else look good. I didn't want that. Well, that's what I was most terrified of, is making somebody look bad, because that you never, especially like a WWE superstar as an independent wrestler, you have to make them shine. But that was a bit, it was so exciting too, because like you said, no, I was the first female squash match, and I don't know ever, but in a long time they weren't really having female squash matches. So super overwhelmed, super excited, but terrified.
But did you not think that, like, oh my God, I'm barely a year into this and
Of
I'm already
course.
on Raw? Like, they're gonna sign me for sure.
Oh my gosh, the amount of times that I thought that I was maybe going to get signed from my tryout, because when you have your tryout at the end, they take you and you do like a separate set of medicals where they measure like your joint range of motions and stuff. And I had asked the doctor, I was like, what's this for? And they said, oh, this is like the extra protocol for people that they're most likely going to hire. And I was
Wow.
like, wow, this is great. I'm at I think it was my first or second year of dental school at this point, and I was like, see ya. Like, I'm not finishing this, because it was the most brutal time of dental school, where your nose is in a book. Hindsight, thank God they didn't sign me then, and I was able to finish dental school, because oh my gosh, my life would be totally different now. But I remember them pulling me aside at the very end, Canyon, and saying, you have a lot of the qualities we look for. However, as a father, I have a hard time pulling you from a professional degree. And at the time, I was like, that's it.
Wow.
I'm toast. They're not hiring me. I got to finish dental school for 4 more years. And I had always been in talks with WWE and a good relationship with them. Obviously, my boyfriend works there. It's a friendly relationship, but I just think that everything that is supposed to happen will happen, and I was meant to be in AEW.
At least they gave you like a reason instead of just kind of stringing you along for months or years.
Yeah, and that's professional wrestling. Unfortunately, there's so many hungry talent that would love to have a shining role on television, but there's just not enough room, unfortunately.
Well, not I guess kind of by coincidence, you did appear on WWE television somewhat recently. Were
Oh
you
yeah,
surprised that the camera like picked you out of the crowd?
of course, because first of all, I didn't even know if that was allowed. First and foremost, because I work for another company, the competitor,
Yeah.
and I didn't know until I was walking to the back to see him, and my phone's going off, and I'm getting greeted in the back saying, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, that was a mistake. And I'm like, oh no. But it ended up working to my advantage, to AEW's advantage, because I was like a trending Google search of the night, one of the top trending Google searches of the night. We did obviously a little skit about it on AEW, and that wasn't like to fire back at them. It was just to make light of the situation, that it's okay, it happened. We're all friends here.
Triple H's explanation was basically like, oops, our bad. Like, basically the director was having the camera look for people in the audience that were concerned, and who's going to be more concerned than you? But they didn't know, obviously your relationship to Adam.
Right. Well, I mean, I can't speak on what they know or what they didn't know, or who was in charge of that. But at the end of the day, it's fine. It made what was it? The Britt Baker challenge.
Yeah.
So it was a fun little,
Is this it?
yeah, right. And I'm so animated with my hands that I'm always doing stuff like that. So it's not even like off character for me to do anything like that too. But hey, it is what it is, and it was a fun little moment in time. But the thing I was most worried about that night, but not me being on Twitter, was him making sure he's safe and he's okay, because that was, oh my gosh, going through a table of, oh, no, I said, I don't know if I can watch these live anymore.
Did he get in any trouble for that?
Of course not. No, he's
Okay.
in the ring. He has no control whatsoever.
I don't know. It's just, I think that a lot of people just read into it a lot. And I'm glad to hear that it was just, it was what it was. But are there any difficulties where you work for one company, Adam Cole works for another company?
Early on, I would say that it was harder for him to come be more supportive of us on the live settings. But since then, everyone's been really cooperative. He came to our, what was it, our New Year's Eve show in Jacksonville. I've been to obviously many of his takeovers, and it's something that Tony Khan has also been super supportive of. He's like, of course go watch your boyfriend wrestle. Of course, be there for his big moments. And as a wrestling fan, you always want to be there. And you don't want to watch it on a monitor backstage. Like I want to see all the crazy stuff happen with the crowd too. You can't. It's just not the same to watch something on a monitor versus being out with all the fans.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess the answer is because we're both wrestlers. But how did you guys meet?
We did because we're both wrestlers, but we actually met on Bumble, the dating app. I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania for a dental school conference. And he came on Bumble, but it just didn't look like him because he had his hair back and like normal clothes on. And anytime I've ever seen him in the wrestling ring, he's like soaking wet, his hair's dripping wet, he has no clothes on. Per wrestling, right? But and it said his name was Austin. So I'm like, this guy looks so familiar, but I don't know Austin. And then it finally clicked, and we started talking from there. And then it took us a while to go on a date. I was kind of hesitant because he's not the most likable character on TV, and he's kind of evil. But it was after New Japan, when he got home from New Japan, when he won the Ring of Honor title, I think for the third time. We went on a date, and it was ever since then. Now I live in Orlando with him.
Wow, where was he living at the time?
So he lived in Eastern Pennsylvania. I always say it wrong. Lancaster.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay.
People at PA will tell you that you just said it wrong, I'm sure.
I know. I get yelled at all the time for it. And I was in Pittsburgh, so it was still like 3 or 4 hours apart. And then he got signed, and he was going to have to move to Orlando, but I still had a year of dental school left in Pittsburgh. So we were long distance for a good year and a half, I would say. And then once I graduated dental school, I knew that I was going to be moving to Orlando. So that's where I job searched.
Well, my girlfriend and I were long distance for almost a year.
Yeah.
You guys did it for a year and a half. What was the secret to actually being able to make it work?
So every night, and I don't know if he'll like that I'm telling you this, but every night we would FaceTime, and he said, because I was really sad. I was emotional when he had to move away, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to see you, because I know my dental school schedule is not forgiving, and I'm not going to be able to travel a lot. And he's in NXT, where they live at the Performance Center and they travel every weekend. He said, well, pick a TV show and we'll watch it every night on FaceTime. So I picked Grey's Anatomy, and we finished the whole season of the series, which is like 16, 15 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. We would watch an episode every night on FaceTime. It was like a little date night. And then, of course, anytime he was able to, he would fly up to Pittsburgh, even if it was just for the day. Fly in the morning, fly home that night, or fly the next morning. So it's just being and you just have to be very understanding of each other's schedules and the situation, and each other's stresses. Like my dental school stresses are different than his Performance Center stresses, but they're still equally impactful on our lives.
I love hearing, though, that I think the biggest thing that we did was we were intentional. It was like everything that we did was intentional. And that's what your FaceTime dates sound like. It's like, okay, this is going to be a thing that no matter what's happening, we have to do this.
Yeah. And it was something you always look forward to oh my gosh, I have all this studying to do. I'm in the anatomy lab, I'm in the clinic, but it's something to always look forward to every night.
Would you say that he's even busier? I guess now is not a good example with everything going on in the world, but with the level that he's at in NXT and everything going on with Undisputed Era, is he busier than ever?
Yes and no. It's like different kinds of busy. So he always has a lot of interviews or appearances or signings. So it's not the same as traveling every weekend on the independents, but it's still your time, it's your energy, it's being in character. So he's still very, very busy.
Who is your favorite person in Undisputed Era that isn't Adam Cole?
Ooh, I have to say Kyle.
Ooh.
I love Kyle. Yeah.
Oh. I wonder
he's very he's his charisma with the air guitar and everything, and he's a great person.
I found myself for many months doing boom all the time. Is this something that happens in your house?
No, thank God. I don't know what would happen if we started doing that kind of stuff. No, we always we're always picking at each other and like cutting like little promos on each other here and there. But we don't really have too much wrestling talk unless where it's like he's watching my match and critiquing my match or critiquing my promo if I'm asking for help with something.
Has he given you like a piece of advice or a critique that you now carry with you into your matches?
Yeah, he's if you watch him, he's always so confident no matter what. Like he always has a look in his eye, and I think that
Mm.
that's something I try to carry with me now is to always have that. Even if it's like a sneer or a stare down or something, his eyes always speak for him, and I think that's something that you have to kind of learn with time, and it's a confidence you have to develop. But that's like the goal is to have the Adam Cole confidence.
So if Grey's Anatomy was the show before, what's the show that you guys have been watching while holed up in quarantine?
Oh man, well of course we watched the Tiger
Tiger
King.
King, of course.
Crazy. And I was kind of late on the ball with that one because everyone's like Tiger King, Tiger King. I was like, I don't think this is for me. And then if we watched the first episode and we finished it, what, in a day or two? It's so great, so great. And then other than that, we haven't really. It's more movies. Like we watched the Sonic movie, the Onward, the Disney movie. We're big
Oh, yeah.
animated film people. We love our Disney movies.
I mean, I used to live in Florida. You currently live in Florida. When you're watching Tiger
Mhm.
King, weren't you just like, there has to be a Florida tie into this because Florida is so weird, and so is this.
Of course. And I'm like a Pennsylvania girl born and raised. So there's still like Florida is very stressful. There's hurricanes, there's alligators, there's lizards running around everywhere trying to get into my house. So it's very different. And the sharks in the water, all that like my favorite beach I found out was the shark capital of the world, which is only a couple hours from here or an hour or so from here. So Florida has its own world.
Since you're animated people or animated film people, are you spending a lot of time at Disney since you're so close?
I love Disney. We have season passes. He likes Disney too. I would say I'm a little bit more enthused by going to Disney, but it's exhausting. You're walking around all, and I understand it because when he has a day off, he wants to have a day off. For me, I'm like, let's go do something. But we put in a day when we go to Disney. We're pretty much there all day, walking around. Of course, if you go to Epcot, you have to have a couple drinks in each of the countries.
So what's the go-to ride in Magic Kingdom?
Oh, see, I like that's so hard. I love like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Me too. It's because it's long.
It's just it's amazing, and I know it's an older ride. Oh man, that's so hard because Space Mountain. I can't pick. I'm really bad at favorites.
I feel like when I go to Magic Kingdom, I'll just go to like Space Mountain and grab the fast pass because there's going to be a giant line for that.
Yeah, I love Space Mountain, but I'm also always terrified. Like it just seems so low. The beams and this, I'm just always like ducking. Like I'm afraid I'm going to get decapitated.
Now, do you get recognized when you go to Disney?
When we're together, yes. He has a man bun. He's more recognizable than I am, but people are also they're pretty respectful too. It's a lot, especially him, because he obviously gets recognized more than I do. They'll even be like, "Hey, baby," or "I'm a big fan," and it's super respectful. And every now and then, people ask for a picture, and we never say no.
I don't think it's possible to say Adam Cole without saying "baby" after it.
I know it's certainly a catchphrase.
In fact, I feel I apologize. Tell him I apologize for saying it several times during this interview without saying "baby" after that.
Oh, he'll love it. He'll be pumped to hear it.
If there's someone that's watching this right now and kind of wants to follow on the path that you're on as a professional wrestler, and they're working the indies right now, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Just really, really, really use your resources because you don't know everything. You will never know everything, but there's people that know so much more than you do, and just really, really listen to all the advice and take it to heart, because if someone's taking the time to give you advice, they mean it, and it's genuine most of the time. So I would really say to just really really respect and just take it all in and try to remember, keep it in a notebook or type it in your phone, because there's little pieces of information that you'll always get that you will use someday.
Is there something for you that like maybe you found out or was told early on that you went, that's something that I really needed to hear or really needed to work on?
I think it's early on, before I even had any wrestling experience. Rhino said in a seminar, "Be seen, not heard,"
Hmm.
which I think is very important. That show your skills or show your dedication. Don't just yap about it or talk about yourself, because nobody wants to hear that. And I think that's for anything in life too, not just wrestling.
Yeah, that's just great life advice, I feel like.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of people that will tell you how great they are and talk about all the things they can do, but wow, I like that. That's really good advice.
yeah. Yeah, Rhino was a mentor to me early on in the indies from when I did a seminar, actually, and he's always helped me through to where I am now, pretty much.
Growing up, who were the wrestlers that you looked up to?
Oh man, so I didn't get on to like I want to be of course, I loved Edge, Lita, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, but I didn't get really serious about I want to be a wrestler until I was in high school and in college. And at that time, I remember I loved Daniel Bryan and the WrestleMania where he had to wrestle Triple H, and then what was it, WrestleMania 30?
Yeah, WrestleMania, Batista as well.
Batista, yeah. That story to me was so inspiring, because I was also at the Royal Rumble that year where he wasn't in the Rumble, and everyone was rioting, including myself. I was like, no, we want Daniel Bryan. That to me was like I was so invested in that story, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want fans to feel like this about me one day.
Hmm. So it was like that's when you really started to decide, like, all right, this is a path that I want to be on.
Yeah. Yep. I was transitioning, moving from State College to Pittsburgh, and we would watch wrestling in my apartment all the time. Me and my coworkers and my classmates, and they were like, you're moving to Pittsburgh. That's a big independent wrestling scene. I didn't know what independent wrestling was. So of course, I'm researching and looking everything up, and I saw, wow, there is professional wrestling schools in Pittsburgh. I don't know how serious I took it at the time, but I was like, oh, I'm just going to try out for fun, something to do, and here we are now.
Well, and I lived in Cleveland for 5 years. I spent a lot of time at the AEW shows, which you did a lot of work there. I mean, I don't know if everyone realizes how close Pittsburgh and Cleveland are to each other.
Well, they're close until you have to drive there twice a week for training, because that's where I also did some training with Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano. About twice a week, once or twice a week, I would drive there and back after dental school to train, after I finished my original training in Pittsburgh, because I just wanted to learn more. And it was they had mastered independent wrestling as far as style and flash and pizzazz goes. So I wanted to learn from them too. And also I had kind of worked out a deal where I got to train for free, and then it's in exchange for working on the shows. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is heaven. And I really, AIW really gave me a platform too for some exposure that I would have never had.
So you made it's about a 2-hour drive. So you drove from Pittsburgh to Cleveland and then back round trip twice a week.
Yeah. And if I had too many exams, obviously it would only be once a week, but I remember that I would be so, as soon as I got there, I would be so exhausted because I'm fighting rush hour. But then after I trained, I had so much adrenaline, I wasn't even tired on the way home. I was like, yeah, wrestling. So it wasn't that bad, and I learned so much, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
Do you think there's anything in the wrestling world that helps you deal with your patients as a dentist?
Man, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's making sure that when you're talking to someone that they feel like they have your time. Like I always like when you're talking to a wrestling fan, make sure that you're making eye contact, that you're talking to them, you're not just signing something and moving on. And that goes with your patients too. You are talking with them. You're not talking at them. You're answering their questions. You're explaining everything in ways that they understand. And I think that's really important to make people feel like they're in the conversation with you.
Lots of just great life advice here. Appreciate this, Britt. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Who in the AEW haven't you worked with that you're looking forward to having some sort of a match or program with?
Oh man, who haven't I worked? I've, I've I think I've worked everyone at this
All right, well,
point.
who would you like to work again then?
Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm Sheeta's amazing. Love working with Sheeta. Chris Statlander is phenomenal. I love her. Big Swole. Oh man, not here. I'm just gonna list off the whole women's roster now. I'm just excited to get back in the ring and in storylines with all of the girls. To be totally honest.
I think that anyone who subscribes to my channel or watches my interviews saw the first bunch of interviews that you did backstage, like the media scrums at AEW, which as a journalist is like the coolest thing, that there's that access made available to reporters. What was it like for you being on the other side of this? A scrum of reporters in front of
Oh my
you, and people
gosh.
just shouting questions.
Overwhelming because they ask when you get asked to do that, it's just they're kind of like, hey, will you do this scrum? Yeah, sure. And then when you walk into the room and it's just like all these people with cameras and recorders and lights, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And of course they all talk over one another, and you don't know who to ask, who to answer first, because everyone's fighting, they want to get their question answered. It's very overwhelming, but I've always had really great experiences with it, with the media scrums, and knock on wood, they've been very nice to me.
Well, there's no reason not to be nice to you.
Well, yeah, you would think.
I don't know. It's nice to see that there's a difference between, who we see in the ring and, who we see sitting here.
Yes, but I will say it's so much fun being a bad guy. You don't know until you get the opportunity to do it how fun it is to just be so over the top and just ridiculous, because it's it I don't even know how to explain it other than it's you finally I finally feel like I'm playing a character, but it's also I get to pull more and more and more of my accomplishments and content from my dental side and deliver it now in a way that is shoving it down their throats, but it's because we're supposed to be.
Is there like a part of this where fans have maybe taken this too seriously and they legitimately think that you are not a nice person now?
Hey, if they do, it's wrestling.
I mean, if they do, that means you're doing your job right.
That's right. That's totally correct. So I mean I love wrestling, so be it if that's the case.
Are you still watching a ton of wrestling right now?
Yeah, it's so weird because we have so much time that I've been falling into weird wormholes of wrestling, like independent wrestling and Stardom wrestling and old Royal Rumbles and AEW and all across the board.
Well, I love it. I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. It's so great to finally have this kind of conversation and catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I appreciate
really
you.
Fun, even if it is virtual.
We'll have to do this again in person when we are able to be in the same room as each other.
Of course. Yep. Count me in.
But until then, I appreciate your time today and so excited to see what heel Britt Baker will continue to do in the ring.
Well, thank you. I hope everyone keeps watching on Wednesday nights.
All right. So there we go. Britt Baker, ladies and gentlemen. Is it weird that I like brushed my teeth and flossed them like really good because I knew that I'd be talking to a dentist? In the same way that you would like brush and floss, like if you were going to see your dentist for a cleaning. Don't get me wrong, I would still brush my teeth and floss anyway. I just did it a little bit extra, knowing that she's a dentist and would be studying and judging my teeth the whole time. Although, I think they look pretty good. Thank you so much for hanging out for this interview. Big thank you to Britt Baker for being part of this. Thanks for watching all the way until the end. If you haven't yet, please click that subscribe button. Also, let me know down below in the comments what you think is the most interesting part of this conversation. How about the fact that her and Adam Cole, baby, met on Bumble? That's amazing. They should like be in an advertisement for Bumble. Look at them now. Also, I don't think it's a matter of if Britt Baker will be the AEW Women's Champion. I think it's just a matter of when Britt Baker will be the AEW Women's Champion. She could very well be the next AEW Women's Champion. I guess it's either her or Chris Statlander, if I had to make a bet there. Could be soon, right? Well, thank you so much for hanging out. We got many more interviews on the way, and I'm adjusting. I'm pivoting. You know, I usually like to do these interviews in person, but the cool thing about being able to do them like this, virtually, is it certainly saves a lot of time. You don't have to jump on the airplane, rent a car, get a hotel, or drive 8 hours like the interviews I did earlier this year in Atlanta. So there's certainly a lot more opportunities to do them. So, who should we do next week? Huh.